Everyone, welcome to the MTA Long Range Planning Committee meeting. My name is Dave Keller. I'm the Vice President of the MTA, and one of my few but very important roles is to run this committee meeting. The reason why we're all here is once a year, people in the leadership of the MTA come together and discuss the overall position of the organization, and the key with this session is that we're looking forward, trying to figure out what do we need to do as an organization to position ourselves for the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years.
The Market Technicians Association is an organization where technicians, market timers, behavioral finance people come together to meet, exchange ideas, grow, network. But it's also an outward-looking organization that helps reach people to teach them, to help them understand a certain form of market methodology.
To associate members, it's a way to network and kind of get into the business perhaps and rub elbows with people they see on CNBC or read about being quoted in a newspaper. And for the professionals, it's like an extension of the family.
The MTA, it's changed dramatically since the early days. From the early days in the 70s and 80s to where we are in the late 90s and now in the 2000s, people are understanding that it's not just about knowing the company and the balance sheet. It's about knowing how technical factors drive returns in the markets.
But in the 1960s, there was this kind of inferiority complex that technicians had because they weren't given what they thought was the kind of professional standing that, say, a fundamental analyst got.
Most of the time they didn't understand what you were talking about. And I know in my own case that I would not go into a client's office or say, you know, I don't like this stock because it's above the head and shoulders top, because he'd probably think I was talking about a shampoo. But the 60s were an interesting period because I think the incubation of the MTA was probably in that time frame.
What I remember, the germ of the idea for the MTA was Ralph Alcampura and John Brooks.
John Brooks was a young technician from Brooklyn, and I was a young technician from the Bronx. And I guess it was just fate that we met. We formed the MTA because there was a void in the street, a void of a professional organization that could actually speak for a very important part of the analytical community. It had never been done before for technical analysis. The first 3 years of the MTA was the hard work, where Bob Farrell and Alan Shaw and Johnny and myself were, you know, hammering around trying to pick up members and people.
I was the first president, and I was president for 2 years, and so it was in the formative stage, and there was a lot of administrative stuff to be done and getting the bylaws done, setting up the programs.
I joined the MTA the very first day. I might not have been one of the, quote, founders, although I'm graciously included. And I was pleased to serve as the second president and make sure that at least the momentum had been maintained.
People saw that we were just two idealistic kids. So we attacked the system not knowing that there was a big wall there. And we kind of just walked around it, and it worked.
Okay, state of the firm. You have an organization that's growing in its size and its complexion. I think that's important to know as you base your discussions the rest of the day. You'll be pleased to know that this last month we went over 2,800 members in the MTA. That's good. That's a good thing to have.
In the old days, the organization was very much an organization of people who wrote analysis. Over time, the organization changed to include professional users of technical analysis.
I think it became obvious to the membership board in the 70s that our membership rules were relatively strict in terms of who was a technical analyst, and that the world around us was changing, that there was a growing interest in technical analysis, and it was being used by many professionals.
But there was concern of opening up the membership that the practice would be corrupted by those that didn't know what they were doing, that were claiming to be technicians and hadn't really been vetted as being thorough, good students of the market.
We knew that we needed to accreditate people.
We looked at the way other groups that preceded us did this, and clearly the New York Society of Security Analysts was a good benchmark, and they had their CFA program, Certified Financial Analyst, and that's when we started talking about we need some kind of testing program ourselves, because if you can pass a test, then clearly the professionalism part is being dealt with.
There's huge interest now in the CMT. People are gravitating to the CMT. They want the CMT because of the rigors of technical analysis that it teaches them.
The CMT, the Chartered Market Technicians exam.
The CMT exam really started in the early 80s. Everyone volunteered to contribute their time, and it took a number of years to compile a very large body of knowledge.
That was in the middle 1980s that we approved it. We started working on the first tests. We originally had just one test, and then two, and then ultimately 3 levels.
The day of the first exam, there was a buzz. People were kind of looking at each other. Here we are, you know, in our 40s and 50s, and God, we're going back to school and have to take a test. But the difference was we were taking a test in a subject that we loved and we were very proud of, and we wanted all of us to raise the bar.
I sat for the exam together with several others, providing the leadership, showing that the leaders should also sit for the exam and sit for all 3 exams and earn the CMT designation.
If the organization hadn't grown to where it could include everybody who was qualified and made the CMT, it hadn't developed the CMT and made it a valid, all-embracing thing like CPA or CFA or whatever, it would not have achieved the stature it has achieved.
Reminiscing about history, of course, I received my charter back in 1993, and I've had the great privilege of working with a number of people over the years, having been involved with the MTA and the CMT program for some time. But we're seeing growth in the CMT program. Our base is building. We're seeing more candidates in levels 1 and levels 2. So we have incredible opportunities.
The MTA office was in One World Trade Center on the 44th floor. It was over in the northwest corner of the complex, and it was the one with the TV antenna on it. On that morning of 9/11, I was on the phone with someone, and so this big bang, you know, the building, it shook the building. I hung up the phone, screamed at whoever it was, hung up the phone, and went out to see and, you know, walk around and see what happened, and nobody had any idea.
When 9/11 happened, it was bizarre for me because I was sitting right here Tuesday morning, I think it was, Tuesday morning, watching it on TV, and when the towers fell, I just screamed to my wife and I said, the tower just fell, you know, and I think Shelley was in it.
You know, as the reality sunk in and all of our history and records were gone, I drew a picture of the MTA office in its layout. I wanted to remember what was where, and that also helped me remember what was lost.
After 9/11, you know, the MTA offices were obviously destroyed, but we knew we had to keep the organization going, and as luck would have it, we had a backup office in Woodbridge, New Jersey.
When I was president, I had started the Woodbridge office as a satellite office to support the operation. Certainly not in anticipation of the 9/11 event, but it just came in handy to have that to immediately go to set up operations.
2004, I think, was a very defining moment in terms of the CMT program, where there was an urgency to provide a very, very comprehensive curriculum and comprehensive exam to meet the requirements for the 86 exemption. And there was a lot of work to be done.
Early in 2004, when Sarbanes-Oxley law came out, the Sarbanes-Oxley law demanded that all analysts on Wall Street had to take 2 exams, Series 86 and 87. 87 was rules and regulations, no problem, everybody has to take that. But Series 86, everyone had to take, regardless of whether you were a technician or a fundamentalist.
Unfortunately, Series 86 only took into account fundamental analysis.
Guys like me just stood up and said, whoa, wait a second. If I could pass the exam, I wouldn't use the material in my day-to-day work. It was that pushback from us saying that, wait, yes, we should all be tested, but we should all be tested on subject matter that's relevant to what we do and what we write. And that was the beginning of the MTA's quest to get the SEC to rethink the Sarbanes-Oxley law. The date that rings out as the most important date in our history is December 17th, 2004, when David Krell and a small band of technicians went to the New York Stock Exchange.
What the MTA decided to do is to petition NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange about using the CMT Level 1 as the exam. If someone passed that, then they would be exempt from actually taking the Series 86 exam.
This MTA juggernaut, if you will, we stood in front of 20 regulators. Those were SEC lawyers, New York Stock Exchange lawyers, and NASD lawyers. And they questioned us, and we presented our case.
I was confident because I knew that with a good team effort that we would be able to convince the regulators that we had a very, very good body of knowledge and a very good standard for examinations. The conclusion of our meetings was that they would accept the CMT Level 1 as exemption of the Series 86. And that was a huge achievement.
The law of the land now reads there are officially 2 analysts in Wall Street. One's a fundamentalist, has a CFA. And the second one is a technician, has a CMT. It's a quantum leap forward. In fact, I never thought it would happen in my lifetime, and I'm so proud of the MTA for it.
I wanted to leave you with this. We do have an organization that's strong. It can do things. We are growing in that double-digit fashion, and that's increasing.
You know, the early steps of those early members that formed the group, I think, has exploded into, you know, thousands of members across the globe that are able to bring together their experiences and network effectively.
The superstars started it. The superstars have stayed with it. And new superstars are being groomed every day.
We're very, very strong from a financial perspective. It allows us to really invest in member services.
The MTA is a place to get information, a place for reference, a place to get together and share ideas, a place to learn more, also to build yourself up professionally for the next job.
One of the key things we've also done is regional chapter meetings.
This is the New York chapter of the MTA, and it's a regional meeting. We try to do it once a month. We organize a group of people to come and listen to a speaker.
With the regions, it's a place where anybody can go anywhere in the country, perhaps one day anywhere in the world, and talk about the same issues and be part of the same overall organization.
Whether they're a technical analyst, whether they're a trader, portfolio manager, really the MTA is there to help people with education, to help them with their careers and really advancing that.
I can honestly say that without the MTA, I wouldn't be where I am today.
I wouldn't have anywhere near the career that I've had if it hadn't been for the MTA.
The establishment of the MTA by Brooks and Akampora allowed people such as myself to have jobs, and because of that, we have an obligation to keep moving this forward. People have to understand how valuable it is both in your personal and professional career. Ultimately, if you want to work in the industry, you should get involved in the MTA.